If you are anything like me, you will react to this piece of information the exact same way I did. This Friday is September 1st. You know what that means, right?
Halloween, what do you think?
Now, I'm like super early with this, and I just had this idea that I wanted to make a quick and really specific video, sort of kickstart my Halloween hype progression thingy for the year.
Now, give me my treat. You don't want the trick.
I'm done talking. I have a patient.
And I have patience, but there is a limit.
I kind of already made a Halloween painting this year, like a few days ago, but I want to make a proper one right now. I'm gonna put a timestamp somewhere on the screen to where the actual painting process starts. I just wanted to explain what I'm actually going to do in this video. It is going to be a Halloween dog portrait, but also an American Horror Story fan art. And I'm not gonna do spoilers. And what else? Yes, I thought I'm going to just make it like almost as a tutorial, like I want to really quickly show a few steps to how I make a digital painting. That might be everything, so let's go ahead and check out what we're going to do today. Gotta love these transitions, huh? Smooth as butter. I should say smooth as margarine, because I'm vegetarian. Going vegan, by the way. First, I'm gonna make a new document that is 2000 by 2500 pixels. That is like my general smaller size that I use. I don't even remember, like sometime in 2022, I really got into using the 4:5 ratio. I feel like it's a really universal aspect ratio that works with many compositions. Today I'm going to make something tall, something like this. That is the most pathetic sketch I've ever done. It's going to feature a Halloween pumpkin, I mean a pumpkin lantern, and it's going to have a dog sitting on top of it. That's a really convincing dog picture there. So who is this dog going to be? Let me show you. As I said, I make an American Horror Story picture today. We have this dog from the series from season 1 called Hallie. I'm pretty sure that's how they pronounced her name. It is the Harmon family dog. You know, when the family moves into the haunted house, their dog immediately starts barking at something, you know, the scene. And I just wanted to combine this dog with a Halloween pumpkin just to make this cute animal portrait that is also a Halloween picture, just to kind of kickstart the whole Halloween craze in myself. Obviously these are production photos, or maybe like this one is from the series. I got some stock photos of pumpkins from Pexels.com. Those are royalty-free photos, just as an overall idea for the texture and the look of the pumpkin. And these are these are paintings that I made. This is from 2020, 2021, and these two from 2022. These were all made for Meb's Drawloving Club. Just wanted to put them here to quickly look at how I made these stuff in the past. And we have some screenshots from the series. There was a scene where Moira was carving a pumpkin, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a nice pumpkin to base mine upon. Like, this is the pumpkin that is going to be featured on my painting. Then I saw that, okay, this is like the really classic generic, like this evil sharp teeth pumpkin, but I still wanted to include this one as a reference. So what I decided is that I'm going to use this pumpkin, like this design, but at the same time I'm going to place 3 mementos around the pumpkin. As I said, I won't spoil anything, so those who've seen the series are going to understand this. First of all, I'm going to put a piece of rope around the neck of the pumpkin. It starts really convincing, I know. And I'm going to put like a pill bottle somewhere like around the pumpkin, somewhere the dog cannot access it accidentally. And I'm going to put the rubber mask from the series also somewhere here, just laying on the ground. Now here's the thing, for years I was a big advocate for not using a sketch. I still think that it's a viable method of working digitally, but today I will work with a sketch layer and I'm going to use my own brush. It's a really simple one. The brush tip is pretty much just a rectangular gradient. Like I made this shape and I applied a gradient like this, and I saved that as my brush tip. Minimum spacing 45 degrees angle to kind of mimic how you hold a traditional pencil, and you have the sharpness turned on, so it's not going to be this really smooth transition all the way through. It's going to be a sharp stroke, something similar to what a graphite pencil feels like. That was my whole idea behind this brush. And I'm gonna use it to create a really quick sketch of what I had in mind, and let's create a sketch from our little dog and the pumpkin. I think my keyboard just died, so let's hope that it's not the case. Wait, is it? Okay, it's working. I want to squish the pumpkin a little bit so I can have a little bit more room, and also I can make it a little bit bigger so the dog is not going to be that tiny. This is going to be the full size of it. I generally wouldn't go with this resolution if I was making a human of this size, like I would double the resolution of the canvas, but since we are making a dog, it's not that important. I'm pretty sure I'm going to mess up the size of the dog. Now I have some reference images from the show open, especially one from the rope, and I'm not going to show you that because you know, it's not just the rope by itself, if you know what I mean. It should look something like this, and like wrap it nicely around the pumpkin. Maybe move the entire pumpkin a little bit to this side. Yes, we can make this part a little longer and continue the rope like this. Maybe we'll need to get rid of this tangent, but it works for now. Rubber mask somewhere around here. It's pretty much just going to be a shiny pile. Maybe like create two eye holes that are like barely visible and won't even make sense on the final image, and like place the pill bottle somewhere here, and maybe like overlap it a little bit with the rope. I just realized it's going to feel almost like this messed up still life. Those who haven't seen the series have no idea why I'm saying that. You might have a guess based on this rope. Let's just ignore that and put all of our attention on the little cute doggo sitting on top of this evil bad pumpkin. By the way, just a little detail for you before you start the series with full of worries. The dog doesn't die. That's just the thing that I wanted to tell. Many people die in the show, many people, but the dog is okay. I totally forgot that I kind of wanted to have the house in the background, like not the entire house, just like a blurred out version of it. Let me really quickly find some reference images of it. Okay, here I am with the Halloween episode, and I want to get a shot from the house from the outside at night. Why can't I find a shot from the outside? I feel like there were like 50 of those in this episode, in these two episodes. Like we have this scene, and we have like another garden scenes, but there was like an overall shot of the house at Halloween, wasn't it? Am I going crazy? Okay, there's this sunrise scene. They still haven't shown the house. What? I was totally sure that there were a bunch of shots of the entire house with the Halloween pumpkins around, but apparently there's like one that I cannot even show here because it contains a spoiler. So I took these few screenshots plus one that I have on the side. I'm not going to show that for those who haven't seen the series and don't know about the like twist in this episode, but I kind of want like this greenish environment with some red and orange everywhere. You know what, I should actually get another screenshot from the house. Okay, I have it right here. I just want to get the rough silhouette right. I really just want to roughly depict and maybe even blur this whole part of the house. I want the moon up here. Just a little detail, like it's not going to be this really heavily moonlit scene like every single Halloween picture. I want like a lot of artificial light and just we're going to see a moon on the sky. I just messed up the whole underpainting. The house has kind of like this color, some of the more red brick colors. There's like a full moon there. Actually, you know what? I did this once before. Let's do this again. Moon cycle 2011 October 31st. Okay, so if I want my picture to actually take place on October 31st, 2011, when the episode I just talked about took place, the moon shall be something like this. So let's actually do that. There we go. It's much more beautiful without this sketch, right? Okay, enough talk, let's get into it properly. Okay, this is the right time for me to share this info. This video kinda started out as a light-headed tutorial, but without a plan I ended up with the long parts of silent work with occasional pauses for info dumping. And I also had some other issues that I'll share later. I did my best to include the most relevant things I had on my mind and cut out all the other stuff. Yes, I have to admit that I didn't end up as cohesive nor entertaining as I could have been, and I hope you'll still find some enjoyment and maybe some useful ideas in the video. I want one of the feet to go like behind the edge of the pumpkin and I want the other one to be on it, and we are looking at it from an angle where it's like slightly above our eye level, so we are not going to see the other edge, the top of the pumpkin. This looks so embarrassingly bad. Just the confidence, not such a blocky shape, and like the middle point is the highest. Okay, so our eye level is somewhere around here, higher than that, like here. So we are still looking down at this part of the pumpkin. I want to try and move the dog to the side a little bit. I will show you why. So let's move the dog like here. Is everything on this side now? Kinda. And like I want the root of the pumpkin, is it what you call it? Like this one is going to have a different color, like okay, there will be the color of the dog and there will be this green for the root of the pumpkin, and it's going to look something like this. Place the other paw over the pumpkin's edge. I think I'm gonna go with this. Okay, if you look at images of these dog species, they have this bigger middle section below the head, so the legs appear almost tiny, and there is this wider section here, and then comes the head. Maybe lower it a little bit. That looks more convincing. Someone is screaming outside. Everybody knows I'm recording. Okay, the thing I like more about the original sketch is that the dog is bigger. Let's try and cut out this whole section. Okay, so I want the dog to be like this big. Okay, and let's grab the pumpkin so it's like tipped over a little bit, and it's going like this. So the root is still coming out from the middle. I changed my mind on the top of the pumpkin. It should look like this. Show a third paw somewhere in there. There we go, I like this version better. Am I recording, by the way? Yes, I am, okay. At this point, I went ahead and cleaned up the sketch so it can be built upon without much issues. And I set up my default layers that I always start with when I do something complex at least. Of course, you can use much less layers than what I'm about to show, but the general idea at this point is to get the picture roughly on the canvas. It can be a giant mess as long as I keep track of what element is on which layer. It will be usable, and generally this is the most important part of the process anyways. Maybe aside from the adjustments and changes I'll do after the rendering is mostly completed. But this is the point where adding and changing stuff is the easiest. It's a personal thing for me, but I don't always pay too much attention to getting certain things right here. It would be more crucial if I was doing traditional painting, of course, but you'll see that I totally messed up the face of the dog and the pumpkin too. But after I get everything on the canvas, I can go back and fix them up as if nothing wrong really ever happened. Okay, this is progressing quite well. There are some issues with the proportions of the dog, and I can't figure it out why. Like, there is something really wrong with the face. Like, I feel like I'm still in this alternative mindset where I think about human faces, and this face looks less like the face of an animal. I will need to look at it with a fresh eye, that's for certain. Okay, let me show you my layers. I feel like I don't show them enough. So this is generally the way I work, at least for now. I always have like a first sketch. I always title it sketch 0, low effort, just put everything on the canvas kind of sketch, and then comes the more refined one. I generally keep these in order to like check back whether or not something works on this version more than on the current one. After I have a sketch layer, I always start with a base layer. This is like the base colors. Literally just picked this one color for a background that is like an underpainting color, and then I put some of the base colors on a layer. It's like really loose, nothing is refined. It's just basically for me to see how the whole thing is going to look. This tree doesn't have any colors, for example. Another hedge or something. I don't know, we will figure that out. We have a layer titled the details. For now, it only affects the dog. So this is where I put stuff like the color of the lips, color of the eyeballs, color of like accessories that the characters have. If you look at the dog, it has this brownish color around the ears and around the face, and I just scribbled some of those colors here so I can show it. If I make human characters, generally there goes another layer here, which is the blush layer, where I put the red parts of the face, and the details, which contains the eyeball color and like the lip color and other things, that is going to go over the blush. It's pretty much just a habit for me to do it this way, but you know, if you want to create any fur pattern or something, I would do it this way. And we have the shadow layer. Now, what does this shadow layer do? So I always make at least one shadow layer, generally 2 or 3, that is set to multiply mode. If you look at the original version of this layer, it is almost this grayish green color. This is the color of the environment that is going to tint the shadows quite a lot, and I put this layer on multiply mode. I lower the opacity. You know, we can now create the basic shadows. I'm going to mess up the pattern of the pumpkin so much. This looks weird. This is going to be my general shadow layer, so we can do stuff like select some of this and just airbrush in a little bit of shadow here. And after the shadows, I will also create light layers. By the way, I messed it up. I generally put these above the sketch layer, so it is going to affect the sketch colors as well. You know, the light color that is going to be like these street lights colors, so I can put some of these on the characters, put it to edition mode, obviously lower the opacity, and now we can create nice light effects as well. I'm still using this brush. I never use this for rendering, but for just laying down colors I find it to be really comfortable. One other really important thing that I always do at this point is coloring my sketch. So most of the sketch is going to be covered up. So there are many people who work by eventually turning off the sketch, and I never really like that workflow. I always need to like recreate every detail that the sketch shows instead of building it into the final version. So what I always do is I colorize my sketch, and then eventually it is going to be covered up by all the rendering. Now everything on the sketch layer is now black, but for example these parts of the pumpkin are going to be this darker red color, something like this, a little bit more red and more saturated, I don't know, something along these lines. And I'm just going to really quickly go through the entire image. I'm going to put the flow on like 100% so it like immediately colorizes all the lines that I touch. This is going to be a really dark green. So the outside of this house has a lot of visible bricks, so I'm going to choose like this reddish color, maybe much darker. Fill some of these parts with some extra red so it's not going to look that dirty in the end. Cover up every piece of the sketch with some color. Create like a saturated but dark color instead of the entirely black line art. So there are a lot of green coming from the environment, so I'm going to choose a really dark green for this fur, even darker so it's not that obvious. And I'm just going to cover this up, and we are going to have that little extra really saturated green in there, you know, instead of having things that are entirely black. We can also do this thing when I mix a little bit of red into this part of the fur, maybe not that much, but you know, it's going to be the first step towards depicting some reflected light from the pumpkin. I will also add another layer of light just for the reflected light and just for glow, so it's going to be covered up either way, but you can start by adding this little just hint of color here. Let's grab the color of the rope and like make a much more orange, like this brownish color, darker than this, something like this. So the rope is not going to look almost dirty either. It's going to have this saturated and dark color as its shadow color. Many times this is not really important. I always like to colorize all parts of the sketch because I have this habit of really going over and over again through the same areas of the picture when I'm doing the rendering, and it tends to desaturate many parts of the image. I should have really written a script for this video now that I really think about it, but then at the same time I'm really struggling all the time when I'm not doing a script, so it might be some nice practice for me. I'm going to go and properly make the first layer of shadows, and then after the first layer we can actually duplicate it, call it shadow 2, delete the contents of the layer and maybe put it to a lower opacity. Let's see, there are a lot of like reds in this pumpkin. Let's actually use a saturated red as the second shadow color. So if I do this, then we're going to have some extra reds in the shadows, but you will see that it works out in the end either way. I feel that this light is really strong. Let's tone it down a little bit, and we're going to obviously have a second light 2. This is going to be like this rim light on the dog, this really strong white light. We are just building our little scene out of these stack of layers, and then at one point I'm just going to lose patience, start a new layer, call it render 1, and then generally I put that in a group and I make multiple layers above it, and then I retitle this group render one, don't do this. Just make a group for your rendering layers when you are ready to really go into it. Obviously I'm not ready for this, and I always go into the rendering stage far too early. And obviously we are going to have stuff like, let's add a color touch layer so we can create more of this glow effect. Or we can try hard light, for example. That maybe works a little bit more when it comes to like atmospheric light, so it's like lighting up the fog in the air as well. So we're going to have a lot of this thing. Maybe I will place 2 or 3 more of these pumpkin lanterns here and there. Maybe we could fill this area with like 1 pumpkin that is just barely visible and just put a few lights in the distance like there. Maybe light up one of these windows or something. Right now, what is going to be my goal with the whole layer rack? Place everything on the picture. All the base colors, like all the silhouettes, all the line works, and like all the lights and shadows, and then we are going to work them together into the final piece. I have a feeling that I'm going to end up blurring the house itself, so let's do a demo of that. Let's see how it's going to roughly work. So I kind of want the house to be recognizable, but I don't want to detail it all that much. I want the focus to be on the dog that doesn't work at this moment. It's like in the ugliest ugly face that it's going to have. The pumpkin is also going to light up stuff like this bottle and the top of the rope, and also the mask is going to be a really reflective material. It's also going to have these metallic parts in the cheek area that is also going to have this really strong reflection on it, and we are going to have the color of the moon also reflected here. I'm messing it up completely by the way right now. This should be like really blurry. And the way latex or rubber works is that it has these really sharp highlight areas, but also has these really dark places everywhere. We are going to figure all those out, and then eventually I'm going to also figure out how to cut this all mess that I rambled around into a watchable video. Oh no. Okay, let's not think about that for a moment. I'm editing this video right now, and I don't even want to tell you how much of a mess it was. I've been recording myself for like around 2 hours, and like 1.5 hours of that was just me trying to squish comprehensible sentences out of myself, and I don't want to talk about it. Let's actually title some of these layers. So this is going to be glow 1, this is like light 3. Just turn these off for now. Turn off the light layers as well. I only want to work with the shadows for now. I'm going to remove this Gaussian blur layer altogether for now, and my next update is going to be when I'm finished with all the layers and I want to work on the rendering.
Violet, honey, would you go see where Hallie went? Thank you.
What are you yapping at?
Speaking of the last owners, full disclosure requires that I tell you about what happened to them.
Oh, God. They didn't die in here or anything, did they?
Yes, actually, both of them. Murder suicide.
Where did it happen?
The basement.
We'll take it.
There's this thing that you can do sometimes when you can actually use your shadow layers. I just did actually the same thing not long ago with the stripes on the pumpkin. You can add details with your shadow layers. Like you don't only use it in order to add the shading on the already existing forms, but for example right now I'm adding the grass, like the overall form of the grass with my shadow layer. Still working with layers. The only thing I really changed was changing the street lamp color that was hitting the dog's face. I made it yellow originally, But looking at the scenes of this street in the show, the lamps were colored white, which is on one hand the same color as the moon, but on the other it is it at least makes the glow of the pumpkins stand out much more. Also, the white and blue light lets all the greens of the grass stand out much more despite being not so saturated. I mentioned earlier how I still make mistakes like messing up the face of the dog. That was the biggest one so far for me, but after I did everything I could with the layers, it was ready to be just copied to a new layer, sliced apart and rearranged to be fixed. One good example of not using the layer rack method somewhere is when I added a few more pumpkins. I just color picked and painted them right away, and they ended up looking much better than I first expected. They are a good addition to the scene by all means. Okay, here we go. I slept on this picture once and I made a few adjustments, like I just started scribbling and I ended up like overpainting some stuff. First of all, I looked at this picture and my very first thought was that it looks better than I expected. So I really rarely say that. First, I just moved away and liquefied some of the body parts of the dog. This one as well. Modified the eyes multiple times. I did a little bit of overpainting, resizing, reshading, everything. This version looks very much like a monkey. I figured, like, I looked at it and my first thought was, it looks like a monkey. This face is pretty flat, while most dogs, including this one, has this longer nose part. I forgot what the proper name of that is. Obviously, I want to reposition and resize the ears of the dog. Hallie, I should call her Hallie, by the way. And you know, I'm going to introduce some of these much longer pieces of hair around the head, and you know, modifying the shape of this whole eye area and the whole nose and repositioning this whole thing is going to be needed, but I'm pretty confident that it can work out well. Also, such black parts should not appear on the fur like altogether. If you look at really furry animals, you will see that the fur always catches some of the light and it can almost never be seen as black unless the fur itself is like really dark, but this is almost an entirely white dog, so it should be much whiter altogether and like much brighter even at the places where not much light is going to be shown. Also, I added these few pumpkins yesterday. These ones are just one group, like normal layers. I just picked colors and painted these in, and I included their glow in the main glow layers. I like how they turned out and I want to work them into the whole composition. What really interests me right now is fixing the whole dog at the proportions, the whole anatomy of the dog, and then I'm going to also liquefy around the face of this big pumpkin, and we will see what next. So I'm going to put away my microphone because I will be really tempted to just keep talking. Oh wait, one thing that I wanted to mention. So Hallie was originally portrayed by a dog called Lamb Chop. Okay, I just wanted to really quickly point out how messed up it is to name an animal after an animal product made out of another animal. Let's not think about it. Let's just continue our progress. Now you will hate me, but at the second day of working on this image I started feeling something not so good. I recorded a few lines, I started working on the face finally, and I managed to roughly get it through the ugly phase. But I felt anxiety building up in me, and it just slowly got worse and worse until we reached the next point in the video where I needed to make a decision. Okay, first of all, I'm making some steady progress, like this is what I did with Hallie so far. Pretty big change. My issue is that I have to turn off the face cam because I have way too much anxiety. Like I literally feel that I cannot think straight anymore. So I will have to turn off my camera like this, and I'm gonna continue the recording like that for now. Continuing without a camera immediately gave me some relief, at least for some time. I even recorded one more segment of me talking about glow layers, but then the anxiety decided to alter the later part of the video.
You know, I don't even know how to say this without coming off like an asshole. I really
You know
don't.
what? Just go ahead. Tell me how you really feel.
You got a dog. I needed you, and you got a dog.
Oh!
It was me you should have been curling up with at night, not a dog.
Oh, so
I needed you.
you needed me, so she was revenge because you needed me, because I was there for you in your time of need? Now I get it!
Okay, what I did here, I left these two glow layers on top of everything. Like, I don't want to involve these two as of now. Here are the fixes for the dog in this one group, and everything below that is what you see here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a layer from the visible, this thing, and I'm going to start cutting stuff out and rearranging them and just working with essentially one layer and like its continuation layers, or how should I even pronounce that from now on, instead of bothering with all of these. Like, at one point I always just abandon the whole layer rack. At one point it just becomes much more tedious to, you know, modify the face of the pumpkin and modify the line art, modify the thing that is inside, modify the shadow layer and the light layer one by one. Now I can just cut it out altogether and liquefy and transform and repaint it. Now I feel so weird that I talk about this, but I just needed to turn off the screen recording completely. The last part is only visible in the time-lapse that Krita itself recorded. I slowed it down as much as I could without, you know, turning it into a slideshow. I don't want to go into speculations, but I feel that maybe the issue behind this whole thing was the fact that I already knew that there were issues with this recording. I simply recorded too much footage where I talked without a structure and a script, and I knew that the editing will be a slog, and then the video will still be long and it won't have the best information in it either. Maybe I just simply lost the momentum from the previous day and felt anxious from recording myself, especially for a project that wasn't entirely in my comfort zone. Still, I got the bulk of the process on tape already. Maybe the last 40% was not screen recorded, but that is generally just a bunch of small work on details and just rendering endlessly, so I would have removed most of it from the final video either way. If I remember correctly, I said somewhere else in the video, but the biggest weakness of the image for me is how I didn't manage to get the likeness of the dog right. I just wasn't feeling like repainting or just squishing the head until it's all messed up in many different ways, so I ended up not touching it after one point. Okay, the picture is finished. It has been a few days since I finished it. I just haven't gotten to recording this outro, and after this I'm going to just edit the video and like release it immediately. That was a promise. And I actually had like things that I wanted to say about it back when I was finished with it, but I just don't remember any of that stuff. Overall, I feel I say this of every one of my works, but it's like one that has issues, but I'm sounding so much like a broken record. It's like it obviously has some issues, but I'm overall satisfied with the end result. I'm a little bit disappointed that I didn't manage to make Hallie resemble the original dog that much. I actually uploaded this image to the subreddit of American Horror Story, and people said that they liked it, and I overall take this as a success. One thing that I wanted to mention about the image that was an artistic decision in the end is I originally was thinking about blurring the house. I should actually show that. Sorry, I'm a little bit unprepared for this outro. I just blurred the entire image, but that was the idea, that I'm going to blur the background this much and, you know, unblur everything in the foreground. I was thinking what should be my approach, and what I figured is that especially nowadays it's It feels like everyone is just cutting all sorts of corners, everyone is being dishonest, everyone is just trying to make stuff look like if they were done properly and stuff. And I was like, okay, I have the chance to blur out the house on the image, or not to blur out the house. And you know, I figured that there's this trick that you can add a Gaussian blur and pretend that it's detailed, that it's just out of focus. And essentially what you're doing is you are hiding what you didn't paint yourself. But if you don't do the blur, then you are forced to show what you did. Obviously this house is not detailed at all, it's like barely recognizable, I would say. I spent about half an hour just making sure that the most amount of splatters and like really weird things are gone from the image before I release it. Like I wanted to just roughly get the lighting done, get the shapes done, but you know, I didn't remove stuff like these really sharp edges, and like some of these strokes don't make any sense. And when you make something with lower amounts of details, a really important part of your work is to simplify things. And we could argue that this goes beyond simplification. It like goes into abstraction, but in a wrong way. Like I'm not purposefully distorting things into non-distinguishable parts. What I'm doing is I'm just literally doing a cheap imitation of the original. But at the same time, this is just a decision that you can make yourself. You can decide to not detail everything, especially things that are not important for your image. And I decided that I would rather have this halfway decent-ish acceptable version of the house than to blur out everything and pretend that it's like entirely done while it is just like this. And I was feeling that maybe the picture looked a little bit better with the blur, but it felt much more dishonest. So I made the decision to leave the picture like this. Aside from all these little elements that are hidden there for the viewers of the series, I think that this might be like a picture that can be appreciated by anyone, and you don't really need any beforehand knowledge to see what this whole thing is all about. It is just a nice dog portrait, and like that's it. Like this is the kind of work when I say that okay, this is 95% kitsch and 5% art, and that 5% art is, you know, the stuff that is down here that is still arguably just references to a show that many people who look at this image are not even going to recognize. Still, I feel that it is just a wonder of creation. Sometimes you just have to say that okay, I don't want to create any like try hard message with this image. I just want to feature some nice elements and create a nice composition and have a nice time, and hope that a few people that are going to see it are going to have a moment of enjoyment as the result of your work. And I feel that I succeeded in that regards. I'm pretty sure that I would have wanted to tell other stuff here, but I don't remember any of that. So I'm just going to say thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day. Do some art, even if it involves spending the first days of September and like the last day of August or something. I don't remember when I started this image. Spending them with making a Halloween picture already, like at the end of summer, literally months away from Halloween. But it can never be an issue under one condition, and this condition is if you have fun while doing that. Farewell. She looked so sad. I decided to give her a smile that will last forever.